As part of our ongoing scrutiny of the Foreign Office, the Foreign Affairs Committee is very pleased to welcome Yvette Cooper, the new Foreign Secretary, and Sir Ollie Robbins, who we're very grateful to see again, having seen him last week. We have a lot of questions, as you could imagine, Foreign Secretary, and we are going to try and be disciplined, and we want to be able to get all the way through to Sri Lanka, which is the last question. So we're going to try and keep it'll be a little bit quick fire, if that's all right, just so that we can, because it's our first session, and we want to be able to just sort of cover as much ground as possible. And obviously, as you as your priorities become more clear and so on, then we may end up focusing perhaps next time more on one particular topic. But we thought we would start with this format, if that's all right with you. Yeah.
Great.
So I thought I would begin by just asking you, what does a progressive foreign policy look like?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. As a former committee chair myself, I have a huge respect for the work that select committees do, and always had a slight feeling that maybe it was calmer when I would sit and answer questions from the committee, but thank you very much. So I think, look, our job, and my job as Foreign Secretary, is to make sure that the partnerships we build abroad make us stronger at home. And that means focusing on our security, on our prosperity, and also on our values. And I think in each of those areas you can see actually progressive elements. So our security is the bedrock on which all other opportunities are built. If we don't have national security, we can't enjoy any of the other opportunities. If we don't have border security, then we lose cohesion in our country. And for our prosperity, that has to mean the prosperity of the whole nation. So it's why, for example, when we're championing trade and investment from across the world, we're championing all the regions. It's why mayors from across the country have been part of our economic diplomacy across the world to get investment into every corner of the country. And I think for our values, it's about respect for the rule of law and also our shared humanity. And that's why, for example, with the Hurricane Melissa hit Jamaica, we were swift to make sure that we could provide a direct humanitarian response because of that sense of the values we have towards other countries in the world as well. So in the end, all of those things we do feed through that security, prosperity, and our values woven together. We are stronger as a country because of the partnerships we build abroad. I think for some less progressive approaches are about saying, do you know what, we just can be isolationist, we don't believe in those partnerships. We do believe in them, and we believe in that international respect for the rule of law and countries working together to support each other in the face of collective threats.
Very good. Chancellor Merz said about Ukraine yesterday, for the first time since the war began, a ceasefire seems possible. So we're getting lots of very positive briefings about Ukraine, but we're not getting any detail as to what it means. And I wondered if you were in a position to be able to help us, and to be able to help us about, if there is a plan emerging, what role will Britain play in that?
So I think part of the reason that you're keen for more details because those discussions are still underway as we speak. And I think it is a very important process set of discussions that are taking place at the moment. No one wants peace more than the Ukrainians after everything they have endured over the last several years. But of course, we also need it to be a just and lasting peace. It cannot simply be an opportunity for Putin to pause and come again. And so therefore it has to respect the strength and sovereignty of Ukraine and also the security of Europe, the security of the UK, but the security of Europe more widely. We know that the threat from Russia is broader than the threat to Ukraine itself. It's also the threat to Europe, and so that's why that is part of it. But look, you'll have seen some of the discussions around that we've had over a long period of time. The reason that Prime Minister set up alongside France, the Coalition of the Willing, was also to talk about the kinds of security guarantees that need to be in place. We talked about some of the financial issues, the Russian sovereign assets and those issues as well. Of course, there are a lot of details, but ultimately, this also has to be about Ukraine's sovereignty, and what matters for Ukraine has to ultimately be decided by Ukraine.
We have been reading that progress seems to have been made on security guarantees. And it was for that reason I was asking, given that that seems to be what's being briefed, if there are to be security guarantees, if it does look like it's getting more concrete, what role are we playing?
So we are obviously the leading part of the Coalition of the Willing. And that has involved discussion between the effectively defence ministries and armed services across different nations that are all ready to be part of the Coalition of the Willing. So the UK is clearly a central part of that. And we've had discussions across other European nations. And we've also been discussing with the US what role they would play in terms of backing up, providing that backup for the Coalition of the Willing and providing those security guarantees. I totally understand why you are asking these questions and pressing on them, but you will also understand while these discussions are still underway, I think it would be premature for me to try and go into further detail when there are still discussions happening.
It's difficult though, because certain things get briefed.
Of course.
You know, Article 5 and and that this is an offer from the United States that might be withdrawn if it isn't agreed to. So these tantalising things are put into the newspapers. But as the Foreign Affairs Committee, when we're trying to hold the Foreign Office to account, we're told we can't be told even that.
I understand, and this is obviously at the point at which there are details to be published, there will of course be many opportunities to raise questions as well. But bear in mind, there's another obviously crucial thing in this, which is there's a huge amount of work that's been going on, obviously involving the US, Ukraine, also backed by European countries, about securing peace. But what we also see is, I think there are two presidents who are pursuing peace, which is President Zelensky and President Trump. But President Putin so far has just sought to escalate war and escalate conflict. And so, look, what we actually need is Russia could end this war at a stroke if they simply stopped the conflict and they stopped pursuing their invasion of Ukraine.
We want to move on to conflicts, and I think we're going to start with Gaza. And I think, Uma, you wanted to ask a question first.